Hello everyone, a warm welcome to our next course, which is Chrome Developer Tool for Beginners. This is something which I always wanted to do where anybody who is coming new to web development or anything related to browser, how do we troubleshoot it? How do we learn? So basically in this course, we will have a look at Chrome Developer Tools, which you can go from three dots, more tools, and developer tools. So once you click on it, the developer tools open, right? And so in this course, we will talk about, we'll look at each of these tabs. What do we do here in Elements one? What do we do in Source one? What do we do in Network one? Console, memory, performance, and Lighthouse security. So all of these tabs, and and we'll try to make sure that we understand their basics. And once you're done with the course, so that you are pretty much comfortable with it. So without wasting further much time, let's get going and let's start with the basics. So in this first lesson, let's try to get comfortable of how do we move around the Chrome developer tool, how do we, what lies where and few other things. So how can you open this is what you can do is you can click on this three dots, more tools and developer tools. That's one of the way, which is Control Shift I also is a shortcut. In Mac you can have Command Shift I or it depends. For us, F12 also works, right? So once you click on it, the the developer console opens, and if you look at uh, the the overall getup of this, it is as of now dark. What you can do is you click on this icon, gear one. Okay, let me make it a bit bigger. Yes, and you can change the theme from dark to light, right? For example, if I make it light, needs a reload. Okay, so what I will do is let me just maybe reload it again, and then I just press Control Shift I, and now it is a light theme, right? And then you can have a layout also, clover format. You can also have some default settings for your record network log, whether you want to, whatever are the activities going on in the network, you want to record that. So, or you want to enable JavaScript, auto completion. So these are the few of the settings which you can do, right? How much indentation you want. And then workspace is something you can add the folders. For example, whichever project you are working in, you can add it here and you can change the code in the developer Chrome developer console only. This tool also. I will show that in the relevant section. And then there are some experimental features which are always there because they are not finalized and they are not released, but you can still uh, work on them. And then you have ignore list, anything which you want to, let's say whenever a website load, you want to skip some scripts, so you can add those. And accordingly, you have devices because you can also, customize that. You can also check how your website, how do your the application will look and feel like on different devices. This is where you can set, right? Throttling is like, for example, let's say your app or website is going to be opened on some locations where your download and upload speed will be less. So you can have a profile name, you can provide the download speed, upload speed, latency, and you can check how does your application will behave. So you can accordingly, fine tune your applications. Then you have the shortcuts, which will talk about, you have every shortcut here. So if you want, you can, people who are more fond of using keyboard, they can these use check these shortcuts, and full list will be found here. Okay, so that's bit about its color settings and all, right? And now if you look at the screen, right, these are the different view areas or different tabs which are available. For example, under Elements tab, you can have your HTML, right? Then under source code, it will load the different source codes of the file. Okay. console where you can do some stuff, where you can write your own JavaScript code. Network is like whatever files were loaded, whatever AJAX requests were sent, all those things can be recorded here. Performance is basically you want to check how your overall website is doing. Memory, and then applications. This is something this browser also comes up with its local storage. So local storage is it will remain only till the time the browser is open. Session storage will be there even if you close and reload again. And IndexedDB and all. We'll cover these in detail. Then you see this security, Lighthouse, and these are other custom. Okay. And on the right hand side, based on different tabs, you can have different views. For example, elements, you can have your CSS, right? For source, you can have your source controller. This is your console. You can close it also, right? And so every tab, every view has its own corresponding things, which will help you in troubleshooting, right? So that's how you normally basically troubleshoot things. Or basically, this is a single stop shop for you to troubleshoot your website related issues. So I think at least we now understand, okay, what it is. Okay, one more thing I forgot is if you click here, as of now, I have kept it as a separate one. I can add it directly inside the window. So for example, if I say dock to the right, so it will automatically open, right? And if I say dock below, so it goes to the bottom. And if I say dock left, depends on individual to individual how you are comfortable with, right? And then also you can change your device toolbar. This is like how this view will look on a mobile, Moto G4, Galaxy. So these device lists, I hope you remember, these are coming from this devices. Okay, so you can check here only that how will your web app will behave in under different devices. Okay, and you can click here, and then if you click again these three dots, you can have a kind of more tools. For example, apart from these tabs, you can have these different tabs, which is like something related to sensors, network conditions, and all, right? And then you can also open the shortcuts from here. The same thing opens, right? And you can have a run command, which is like whatever operations you will see we are performing here, we can do it via this shortcut there. Let's say you want to show the network, so you click here, so it will automatically go to the network. Right. So this is like terminal type kind of a thing. Console drawer is like this one where you can write your own code, right? And search is if in case you want to find something. That's a global search. Okay. So that's bit about our console. That at a very high level, what how it is briefly organized. Now what we will do is we'll create a small project which is like which will have a small HTML file, a very basic one, and a JavaScript file and a style. Because we'll see how do we troubleshoot different things using this Chrome developer console. So moving on, let's first now create our small website, not a website, small page, which includes all three different types of files. Okay, so we have created a very simple page, which is loading two files. One is a style sheet, style.css, another is a my file, JS. All it does is it has an h1 element, some list, basic one, then click below to begin your journey, and then it has a button, right? And button we have this event. Okay, so this is a pretty straightforward one. There's nothing fancy, right? And when we say that, okay, this set for what we have in our CSS is first is we have is one second. We have is a body tag for which we have defined that this has to be the color. Let me just bring it here. So now you can see that for body we are saying background is this, S1 has to be of this color, paragraph has to be this. If I over the list, the background color should become red. for this, right? And in JavaScript, all I'm saying is on click, you do alert, you're a great learner, right? Uh, what I am using to run this local server is basically what we call it as a live server. You can add it as an extension, as a add-on to your VS Code, right? And then you can also run it. So if you look here, so here if we go to live server, so this is a live server which I have installed. And in case you want to run it, all you need to do is Control Shift P and do a live server. All should. Okay. So now maybe let's look at this. So this is how our uh, website, not a very great one, right? It's a very basic one, and but this will help us in understanding how do we troubleshoot things, how do we debug things. And if you look at this, the hover is also taking it, right? So our website which we want to troubleshoot is set. So let's now open our console, okay, and let me just reload it so that everything becomes clear. So if I just reload it, so now if you look here, network, it shows what all files are loaded. These two are others are WebSocket. Let's just ignore it. So our focus right now is this elements. Okay. So what this does is it shows the complete HTML file for whichever is displayed. For example, body, whichever tag you will click on, that will get selected. For example, body. This is H1. This is UL. Under this we have list, right? So it's basically this is and if you look at on the right side, it automatically selects what all CSS is applied to it. For example, style CSS one, background color is this, text line is center. There can be many multiple CSS, but some of it will be applied to your element. How do we find out that? So what you can do is go to this computed one, right? And now you can see that for this body, the padding is this border margin, and then you can see clearly the color, right? What is the background color? And you can also see from where it is coming, right? Because there can be multiple style sheets from where they are coming, and some are inherited. For example, if I just click here, these are all inherited one, okay? And these are all coming from the style sheets, the basic one which is inserted, okay? And so we now and then we also have something like the rendered fonts and all the details. Now, for example, what if you want to select any of it? So what you can do is you click here and let's say I want to see what is happening with learn. So learn is getting selected, which is li, right? And the style is here is there is only text line which is center, and that is coming from body, not from li, right? And for example, if I want to see a H1, so for H1, the color is coming from spreadsheet, right? And what I can do is, if I go here and if I click here, if I want to see how it will look like if I change it. So for example, I can make it red, this, and I can, increase, decrease its gradients, colors, everything. So whatever you want to do, you can do that from if you want to change alignment, right? You can let me make it like this so that I want to make it as left aligned, right? So you can see how it looks, right? Let's just keep it center. Let's say I want to have font size as font size of 30 pixels. So now it is increased 40 pixel, then also it is increased. So you can play around with its style, right? And then, for example, if I go to accessibility, I can also see this in hierarchy from where it is coming and what are its elements. Okay, so that's how basically you can check what all styles are assigned to it and how you can modify and try changing them. Now let's say that this one, I want to modify the text also. So what you can do is do a right click, go to edit as HTML. I say, let me just write anything, right? And I can just see how it looks like, right? What if I want to see that how do this node I can select it. Go to copy and copy JS path. And then if you go to console and you can write here this control V, you can see it is already selecting this, right? And we'll cover console in detail, but this is how you select this element, okay? Now going back again to elements, and if I select this, right? And if I right click this again and I say copy styles, then all the CSS which is applied to uh, this h1 element will be shown copied. You can see here this color is this, text line, everything is copied, right? And let me just close it. And for example, if you have to inspect this element, how you can do is do a right click and say inspect element, which is like control shift I, right? And it again open the same thing, right? It is already selected. So now let's so we now understood, okay, this is how you can, because the overall this is nothing but everything is at the end is an HTML tags. So that's how you work with them. Now, for example, let's look at this unordered list which has these elements, right? So what I can do is, let's say if I want to add one more list, so I can do a copy or I can directly do a duplicate. So you can see there is one more added, right? I can also do a hide element, and this is hidden, right? You can see this is hidden, but the space is this is hidden, right? And what if now if you must be noticing that if I hover over this, it is turning into red, right? And if I go here and look into style.css and the source, well, we'll go into source a bit more once into the next lesson. But for time being, why it becomes red is because I have a CSS li colon however as background color is red, right? And how do we trigger this is, what you can do is, for example, this is the element which is selected. I don't need to hover it, right? I need to hover it to trigger this, but another way out is you can click here, right? With this as selected, you can trigger this element state hover. And now when that state is reached, you can see that how it is becoming red. Background color is red, li hover. And if I go here, this also you will see that, okay, this is the reason the style.ss that it is becoming red, correct? So that's how basically you are able to uh, trigger different stuff, right? So now, so we see how do we trigger this, how do we edit an element, and in fact you can add also. Once you say, if I just say edit as HTML, right? So you can add whatever you feel like, correct? And now let's say that you want to add a, you want to suppose, let me first select this, right? So you can filter these properties also. You can say that where is text used, so you can filter those. So text align, you can clearly see those filters you can apply, right? And same goes for computed one also. Here also you can have a list and it will already filter based on list, right? And then you can also kind of you can add your class also. For example, if I want to add a new class here, I can add any new class here. So that is it, right? So that's how basically, and you can see the color is also changed, right? So you can play around with the styles, you can debug it, you can check from where it is coming, you can edit it, right? And you can also what you can do is you can also delete stuff, you can hide stuff also. Okay, one more thing what you can do is, for example, I want to see what part of my CSS and all that stuff is being used, right? So for that, what you can do is you can have click on Control Shift E. You can open a coverage, show coverage, okay. And if I just click on reload, right, then it tells me that okay, in my style, these parts are covered. Let me just maybe what I will do is let me modify something. Maybe I can have something like not this. We can add P1. Let's add something like P1, right? And just save, and then we see in style.css, right? Let me just do it again. This is from the command palette also. You can go from here also, run command, Control Shift P. In iOS, it should be Command Shift P, right? You can then here, if I double click this, right, one second. Yes, if I don't know why this does not work, but if I double click this file, I can see that my body, these all parts have been used, but li has has not been, as well as p1 hasn't been. But if I just say move here, this turns as blue, right? Why? It has been used. So in our elements tab, as of now, what we learned about was that how do we select an element? How do we add different classes, right? How do we kind of filter them? How do we see which style is added to which element? How can we basically copy that ID where which that element refers to? We can copy the styles as well as you can hide them. So that's bit about our elements. Now, in our next chapter or video, we will move towards our sources tab, where we will understand about how do we handle the code, how do we, let's say if I click here and how do we this message is getting triggered. For example, if I just say, okay, now you need to troubleshoot it, we'll look at that. Okay. So now in this lesson, we will look at the source tab. And before that, let us just look at quickly at the code changes which I have done. Rather than just simply having a, when you click on this file button, right? Rather than just showing an alert message, apart from it, I have defined a function nested call to which I am passing a variable my count and it is returning its count, right? And then again, I am showing another message, right? So idea is to showcase you the different features of debugging using this. And for the timing, let's just say that let me just close this. And if I just click here, you complete one exercise, you complete 7 exercises. Now let's just try to troubleshoot it that I want to see how it is happening. Okay. So for that, what we will do is first, if you press Control Shift I, this panel is opened and it has three parts. One is on left hand side is kind of a hierarchy of your files, how they are placed. Then you have in the center is the window where different files will be opened, right? It will be like this. And on right side, you see there is the different kind of breakpoints. We'll look at them. We'll look at this. So this is how it is things are organized, right? Now, let's say that when I click on this button, it automatically run this code and I know that this function is being called, right? So how do I stop the code in the debugger? So the first thing which I can do is I can simply put a breakpoint. By clicking here, if it turns blue, it is the breakpoint is active. If you click again, it gets debugged. It gets deleted. Or you can create a breakpoint using right click and add breakpoint. For the timing, we'll just say add breakpoint, right? And if I click here, what does it say? Pause then debug, right? And the code has stopped. Okay. Now let's just first look at these these some of these buttons. This one means you just want to execute it, you don't want to debug. This means you want to debug it, but you want to step over each call. For example, if I click here, it goes to next one. It calls alert. Okay. Now here, yes, here it is a function call, nested call, where this my count is being passed. So one thing which I can do is either I want to go inside debug this function, or I just want to skip over. So for example, I want to skip over. So that's what this step over function does, and you are able to see this message, right? And if I just say press this, that's okay. Now let's again look at it and let's see how does this step in step out work. So if I now click here and it goes again here and I just want to step over this, okay. Now I want to debug this, so I go inside this one F11, so it goes here, right? For example, now I feel that everything looks okay. I don't want to debug it. I want to come out of this. So that's where you have step out, right? So that's how you basically do this step by step, and then you can just simply say click on resume and everything is done. So these are the buttons basically which you use to move towards different codes. Okay, so now since we have seen how these different options are there, right? And now what you can do is that, for example, you can place multiple breakpoint. I can place a breakpoint here, here, and here. Okay, so for example, if I do this right now, it stops here. I say resume, message is coming, and again it goes to here, right? And then again, step by step, it will stop at every point, every breakpoint, and it will show me everything, right? But let's say you said that, okay, this breakpoint is okay, rest, I think all are okay, I just want to proceed. I don't want to stop, right? So what you can do is you see this? There's a down arrow. You just click on it and you hold the mouse cursor button, right? And then you click on the second option. So it basically goes through everything. So what it does is it basically skips through rest of the breakpoints, right? So another option is, for example, you don't have these breakpoints, you just have first breakpoint and you say I want to debug. So it comes here, but you want to skip everything and you want to directly the code to directly go here. Just click here and do a continue to here. That's it. And first message come line number 3 and it stops. So that's how you can basically skips through the few lines and the codes and you can directly go here. Okay, sometimes what you need to do is, for example, you have executed everything and you are at these somewhere in between, but you want to restart it, right? You want to go to the beginning and start again this whole function. So what you can do is uh, go here on the call stack, do a restart frame, right? This is one way you can do it. So all I need to do is restart frame and goes to the beginning, right? And it starts again. That's how you basically uh, the starts the execution of this function. And what you see here is, let's just focus on as of now on call stack. So this is like in what order this function is being called. For example, first is you see there's a button in our index.html which has on click event which call this, and that's where it comes here, right? And this is called as the trace, and you can also do a right click copy stack trace. So it basically what it does is you can see there is a stack trace is copied, right? And then you can basically kind of move through your check through troubleshoot your issues using call stack, that how the calls have happened and where probably an issue can lie, right? So let me just step over to the next function and just show you how do you check the variable value. One is you can see there is already a variable value coming. My count is equal to 1. Another way is you can just hover over it. You will see its value. Or you can just copy this variable. You can go here. It shows that. Another way is if you look at the scope, there's a local scope where you see this my count variable 1, and you can modify it from here also, right? If you just double click, you can modify it. Very simple, right? So let me just say, okay, okay, that's fine. That's okay. Okay. So now we see one type of a breakpoint. There are multiple type of a breakpoints which we will see. So one is the this is simple breakpoint, right? And there is, if you do a right click, for example, if I do a right click here, there's a conditional breakpoint. So this breakpoint will be triggered based on certain condition. It will not be triggered like always. So what I can do is, if my count is equal to 7, right, double seven, then only it trigger it. And I know that one is, it will be one here, then it will call this method nested call. 1 plus 6 is 7, it will get triggered. And now you can see this, it is yellow, orange, right? Orange is kind, not yellow. That it will be like conditional. So if I just click here, and let me just remove this. So now it stops here because my count value is 7, right? Now if I edit it, right click, edit, I say if it this value is 6, then only stop. And now if I click here, it doesn't stop. So which is the way we want them to be, right? So that's how these are conditional breakpoints. One is a simple breakpoint. Another is breakpoint is a DOM breakpoint, right? For example, let me just first do one thing. Let me just move this. Let me just this is a list under which we have this element. I'm just copying it, right? And copying the path. Okay. And what I will do is, if you click on this button, I will remove this entry, the first one, right? So what I will do is, I will have something like this dot remove method. Okay, so I'm selecting it, and then remove method is there. If you look at this source, there's a document dot query selector. Select this path, this element, and then remove it if I click this button, right? But before that, I want that in case anything happens to this list, I should have a breakpoint triggered. So what I can do is, first let me delete this, or I can disable also. Right click, disable, it is disabled, right? And this is a different one. And if I can disable blue one, it will be light blue. So these are all disabled points. If I enable it, right, then they become enable, and I can see these two breakpoints under this. I can also enable disable from here. Okay, so now let me disable them. What I will do is, I say that in case this unordered list, which is this complete, break on subtree modification. So if in case anything under this tree modifies, you break, you stop. Or in case any attribute modifies, then you stop. In case there is a node removal, then also you stop. So I say subtree modification. So it becomes blue, right? DOM breakpoint, right? So if you go here, you can see there is a DOM breakpoint in UI. Now if I click here, you completed one exercise. Now it stops automatically. And you can see that paused on subtree modification, you will descendant li removed automatically. Okay, so this is the DOM breakpoint. If I just say okay, you can see this is already deleted. Okay, now sometimes you want that whenever you click this button, what is happening, which event, what is mouse click event, what is happening, can I listen to this event and can I have trigger a breakpoint? Yes. So if you look here, there's an event listener breakpoint, and under it you have different things, different events, animation, canvas. For us it is, we'll take mouse, we'll say click. So whenever I click, let it trigger a breakpoint. So if I just click here, so it triggers a breakpoint automatically. It says this button type on click event, and if I just execute it, then it also automatically trigger my other breakpoints, right? So that's how it basically triggers it. Let me just first delete all these and show you one more thing. Break on and subtree. Okay. So another thing is basically is, for example, what you want is that you want to trigger a breakpoint when this function is called, nested call. And you don't know when it will be called, but it is globally available because I have loaded this file via index.html. So what I can do in console is, you can say debug nested call. Okay, whenever this is called, you debug it. So I just click here, and You see, it automatically gets triggered, nested call. I did not put any breakpoint, it got triggered automatically, right? Paused on debug function. It automatically tells you that, okay, this is how things are, right? Okay, good. Let me just reload it because the entries are deleted, right? And now let's say that another thing which we have not seen is you can also modify these code. For example, I can say my count is equal to 2 and press save. Simple, press save. And if I click here, you can see you completed 2 exercise. The value gets modified, right? But if I just do a refresh and you see this value is lost, right? So there are two ways around it, right? How do you preserve these changes? Okay, so what you can do is one way is you say that you click on this file system, right, and you add your Chrome folder, right? This one, Chrome Developer Tools folder to the workspace. You say allow, and now whatever changes you will make here. So let me just close all. And whatever changes you make, for example, I make it to 2. I make it completed 1, 2, 3, right? And here also I write something and I press save. So whatever changes you make here, right? You can see them that they will automatically are. Let me just read this breakpoint. That 1, 2, 3, 8, everything is getting reflected, right? And if you look at, if you just press the refresh also, still the changes are there, right? Why? Because the code is, it is directly modifying your file system. If you look at this, this is here. So you can actually, in fact, modify everything, the developer console. So anything, everything you can modify, right? And one important other thing which I wanted to showcase is one is this, not one, many, two. Let's look at this snippet, right? So in case you want to store this code in the browser, right? So what you can do is you click here, you go to here, snippets. Okay, let me go back again, snippets, and then you click on new snippet and you paste your code, press save, right? Or you can do a right click, rename my samples, right? And or maybe we just want to store this, for example, console.log, hello, right? And now you want to run it. So what you can do is either you can press Control Enter, right, or it will console log hello, right, or you can come here and run this. So these are like multiple snippets you can store for for your reference in the browsers. Okay. Then, for example, if I go back again to file system, right, and if I go here, let me close this, and let's say if I change this, right, and I have changed this also, right, or in fact I added another function also. Let's just assume, right, I want to see what all changes I have done right now without before saving. So what you can do is you can go from here, more tools and changes. You can clearly see in function, there is you have added this, then you added this, then you added these. So it also track those also, right? So basically, at any point of time, you are you are checking, making some changes, trying to check what has been done. So you can use this changes tab also, right? Now, let's say that I want to remove it. Let me remove this folder from workspace. So let's say that rather than having the whole workspace here, I just want to make some changes, try out things, and let those changes persist also when I reload. And if I later want it to merge with my changes, I'll do it. So what you can do is, for example, if I just go to page and I want to see what happens if my count is 3, and I just press save, and if I just refresh, my count is again 2, right? How do I make sure those my temporary changes persist? So for that, what you can do is go to overrides, select the folder. If I select Chrome Developer Tools and I say allow, right? Now if I just say uh, maybe 3, right? And now, because now it is done with violet, so right now if I just press refresh, right? So it is now 3. If I just change it to 5, right? And hold on, and I press save, and if I just press refresh, my count is 5. But if you look at the backend code, it is still 2. So how it is doing is, it is an override folder which it creates inside this, right, where you can see my count 5. Okay, so that is normally which you can use to sometimes check your chummy changes, and then uh, kind of if you think they are okay, then you can merge them. So this is, we have come to this source tab end of the things, right, end of the lesson, where we have looked at trace, scopes, breakpoint, listeners, source codes, how do we debug, and other things. So now, without wasting further much time, let's move on to the next lesson, which is related to the next tab, which is console, and then we might look into network performance applications also. Hello everyone. In our previous lessons, we have covered elements, sources, and now in this we will plan to cover console. So, like sources, console is also very important. So this is like a REPL where you can write your JavaScript code, you can run it, you can check how it looks, right? And primarily in console, normally, for example, let's look at our code. So normally developers, what they do is they kind of log some stuff when something is run, right? For example, here it is console.log is being used, right? Let's just look at it, what it does. So for example, if in sources you go, you will see console.log is being logged in nested call, which is being called in on-click event. Let me just click here. Okay, okay, and this is done. So, but what happens? So, anything which a developer wants to process is or wants to log is logged here. If you look at here, there are 4 messages. So, this is the one which came from our reads completed 1, 2, 3 nested call. If we look at here, this is the same, right? And so that the developers can have different kind of logging messages. And on left hand side, what you see is there is 4 messages is like for everything. Then in case you want to see only errors, you can use this filter, warnings, info, right? Whatever we have logged, and user messages if any, right? And in user messages, these are like the locations from where those messages are coming. For example, my file.js is one message which is coming from here, and another message is coming from live node. So these are the 5 different ways to see the message, right? And if you want to clear it, you can clear it using clear console. And if you want to increase the size, just control plus, okay. And in case you want to filter it, you can filter that also. For example, if I just refresh, right, and I click here, so you see there are 2 messages, and if I want to filter for click, only click will come. If I just say REA, then those will get filtered, right? And then that's how basically the whole logging happens, and you can view those logs. Now you can also preserve the logs in which there is a reload or something, right? If I just say preserve log, and if I do an F5, right, you will see that this log is still there, the previous one. And similarly, there are other options. While, for example, you can log HTMP, the those XHR AJAX requests also, right? And you can do enable autocomplete from history also, right? So let's just try to, while we are in console, let's try to look at how does this console works. Okay. So for example, if you just want to log any messages, you just press console and you will see what all different methods are available. For example, I just press enter. So there is error, info, log, warning, count. There are n number of errors in the methods which are available. That's how you can, which you can use in your code to put kind of a breakpoint, not breakpoints, the log checkpoints in your case. For example, if you just want to log a message to the console, you can just say hello 123 and it is logged hello 123. Simple. And for example, let's say there's a error, there's a array, not error, array of salary, right? And which is like, which has objects as like month as Jan and salary as 1,000. Okay. Let's say there is this one object, then there is another, then there is another. So there are this array of three objects. Now you want to log them. So one way is you just say console.log salary, right? So it will just log this array object and you have to drill down to, right? And another way is to make it more meaningful and beautiful is console.table and you just say salary. So you see, it has index is one column, month and salary. So it's just much better, readable and all, right? And now, for example, so you want some, let's say, let me just clear it. So one way of clearing is this, Control L. Another way is console dot clear. So it clears it. Uh, Due to preserve log, okay, yeah. So once again, let me just do this. And now we run this console.clear, so it clears it, right? Now let's see that, okay, in case we want to log a message, which is an error, how it will look like. We want it to stand out. So what I will do is we'll say console.log, console.error, test error. It gets shown in red. If you say console.warning, test, maybe let's say test warning. So, warn, sorry, you have it in yellow. So in case if you click here, it will show that test warning. You click here, it shows test error. If you click here, it shows everything in the file using the file, right? It is mentioning it as others because we are using this REPL, right? And then what you can do is once you have an error, let's say sometimes uh, you want to log a certain set of messages in a group. Let's say you have one function call, you want to log that messages under one function group, and then there's another function, then you want to log those messages under another group. So how do you do that? So what you do is you say console dot uh, group uh, group was, let's say, G1, right? And then you say console dot log hello. I'm imagining I'm inside a function. So console dot error, right? So these were thrown from uh, these were thrown from one function, okay, and I'm logging it as under G1 function name. Let's say there is another one which is like G2, right? And that's how those errors are thrown. So what if you press enter? You see this? So there are two groups, G1. G1 has hello, hello, and error, right? So you can use these. What if I, let's say, let me do that. What if I just use this, right? And I want to log that, let me close this style, that I will just, so it will say on click event, right? And I just say group end, right? And let's not have it as console, we say console.warn and we say console.error. So we are logging two messages just for our tracking. And now what I will do is, in case there is this function is also called, we will log that also, right? And then we say end this, right? And I just press save, and because it is live server, so now, as of now, the clear, everything is clear, right? If I click here, uh, why there is alert? Console.log. Let me. Yeah, you remember why there is an alert? Because the changes are coming from this, right? So let's just remove it, delete all overrides because there was an override. And now, if I just press this button, and now you see this red one shows one error, one warning, and one shows. Okay, so we go to this. You see on click event, then you have you completed 1 2 3 exercise, and then you say nested call, then there is this, right? And if you look here, why it is kind of not closed here is because if you look in the code, this call is before this call. So what I can do is maybe I can say it like this, right? You call it, let's just see it as a group, complete one. So if I now click here, so you see there are two groups. So that's how we use this, okay? I think one thing is remaining related to console is, which is console.assert, okay? So that's like, mm, how do we do is, let's say we have, mm, let, let's say we have variable a is equal to 10 and where b is equal to 20, right? So now what you see is like that you want to say that our c is equal to b is less a is less than 10, a is less than b, right? It has these messages. So now how you can use console.assert is basically you want to pass the condition. First condition is b a is less than b, okay, and then what do you say is that what is the data? You say my data is a comma b, right, uh, comma c, right? And if this, and you just execute it, right, and if a is less than b, this asserted condition is true, which is okay, and if it is this, assertion failed because a is not greater than b, so it logs the data also. Clear? So it's like you are making some assertion a is less than b with this data. If this assertion fails, which in this case it has failed, so now you can have that loss. So you can use this console as a REPL. You can code anything, even if let's say I want to remove this, for example, this one, right? What I will do is I'll say copy JS path. I can try it here only. I can say dot remove result, right? Same way, if you want to uh, copy this path and you want to see what all methods are there, you just press dot and you can see whether it is click and all and everything. And here also you can have remove. I'm just taking an example. So that is also one. So that's what we learn in this lesson. So maybe now we have understood fairly well elements, sources, console, and it's like a playground for us. And we can interact with the on the code also. In fact, we can modify the values also during debugging. Now, next we'll look at networks. Then we'll look at applications and the other tabs. So now we have understood about elements, source, console. Time now to understand and talk about network. Uh, so normally what happen is, so let me just clear everything and just do a refresh. And now if you look at this, when any website, anything which loads, there are a set of files which are uploaded. So you can see there is a style.css, my file, there is a WebSocket because of live server, there is a UI5 one that's you can ignore. So these are the different files which are loaded, and so you can look at them. For example, if you look at click on this, It tells you what is the request. It is loading this. What is the method? Get method. Status is green. Okay. What was the response header? This was a header. And then you can check in response also those code, right? And it can tell you what initiated it, right? And it also shows you how much time it took to load, for example, which you can see here also in the waterfall model, right? And the status also tells us that what is the status. It is like 200 means everything is working fine, right? And in case you want to filter certain queries or certain files, you want to see whether they are loaded or not, you can, for example, filter it here using my or whatever filter you define. For example, if I say I want GS files or JS files. Another way of JS file to be filtered is this one. You see all JS, CS1, CSS1. XHR is where you mix Ajax since we don't have any, so that's why you don't see it. But otherwise, you can have these filters. And if you want, you can hide data URL also, as well as if you want, you can block certain requests also. For example, if you right click here, you say block request, then it will come under block request. Okay, and then if you do a right click, you can save these requests also. There's another function which is like a recording network log stop and start. For example, if I just stop it and I just say refresh, right, then it will not log. Let me just clear it. So if I just say refresh, you can see there is no log coming because I've stopped network logging. And if I just enable it and do a refresh, you can see this. So where it is used is when normally what happens is your front end interacts with the back end, then you make those XHR requests. And those requests are normally you can track them here. What requests are made. For example, let's just let's just open a site name o.org, odata.org, right? And if I open this, right, and I do a reload, let me do a reload, okay? And now you can see there are so many requests being sent, right? So how do I filter? So let's say I want to see what are the AJAX requests sent. So in this case, I don't see any. What are the JavaScript files? These are the JavaScript files because I need to debug and I might need to check them, right? What are the CSS files? You can see there is a bootstrap. So clearly it is using bootstrap. Are there any images? Yes, there are many images. Anything media? No. Fonts? Yes, these are top. Anything? Yes, these are one. WebSockets, any there are no WebSockets. And similarly, and you see this console also, these error messages shows you something that okay, there is some error, some file is missing or some font is missing, right? Let's say if I just click here and I say um, reference library, okay, and if I just say let me just keep it all and let me just clear it, okay, and let's see what if I want to click this. So now we can see there is a request which is being sent. And if I just do an XHR, there's nothing. There is, if you just open it, it will tell you what kind of a request have gone. For example, there is CSS one which has gone, anything JavaScript related, and all those stuff. So basically you can track. And in case if you look at this request was sent to this place. Okay. And what was the response? The same thing. Whatever you see here, is you can see those values. So that's how normally we use networks is to check whatever is being loaded. Is there any file which is missing? Is there any call which is not going through? That's how which he uses for troubleshooting. So now in our next lesson, what we'll do is we'll go through first is applications and then we'll go through other tabs. So we have seen elements, source, console tab, and network tab so far. I think time now to talk about application tab. So this is the place where you actually see what local data is stored by the page. For example, local storage is like if you open one session here and I open the same thing in next tab, then the data if data needs to be shared, that is the local storage. But as soon as you open a tab, a session is opened, and any data you want to just save for that session is stored in session storage. These Web DB are typically in browser databases, right? The light one. Cookies is what all any cookies which are stored by the website, you see that. Then you have cache and all. So what we will see is how do we create this local storage or how do we read it. And one way for this is that I write it here, but since we now understood what is console, so we will actually, do it interactively in console. For example, if I click here, I go to console and we have a global object local storage and we will say local storage dot set item name. Let's say I want to store the name, right? Name is suppose Nabil. Okay, and let's say I want to store the same name in session storage also. Uh, okay, so now if you go to the application tab, you will see there is a name Naveed and there is name Naveed. Key value, it stores like a key value. And good thing is you can filter also, you can delete a value also, you can delete all, right? And in case you want to read it, that is also not that's also very straightforward, right? So all you need to do is do get item, then in the name, in the value you pass the key. So I want to see what is the name Naveed, right? And same you will go for this, and you can delete also by using remove item. So local storage remove item Naveed, and if you see here, this is gone, but session is still there, right? So let me just store again the local one because I want to show you something. Uh, okay, so now we have both name Naveed here as well as here. Let's see what happens if I just copy this, open a new one, right? And if I open the window, you will see here this local storage is there, but session storage is not, right? And in case you want, for example, you can clear it from here. If I say local storage clear all, and if you see here and you go to local storage, it is clear. It's like a data which is shared across multiple tabs, and session is local to it. Cookies, let's see if we have any cookies. No. So maybe let me open one more one more application so that you can see if we have any cookie or not. Let me just say Control Shift I. Okay. And you will see here in under application there are cookies, right, which is nothing but name value pair, right? And YouTube, this is like another one from where which we are getting the cookies, right? Does it have any local storage? Yes, it has these key field value which is storing locally, like this one you can see, and YouTube also locally some data related to YouTube. And then there is session storage, nothing in related to session storage. Yes, in YouTube it has some session storage data. So, so that's how normally when you want to understand is there any data which is locally stored or anything, what value in it, and you can interact with it using it. So I hope it makes sense. And in our next video, we'll cover the next tab. Okay, so in our previous lessons, chapters, whatever you call them, we have understood elements, sources, console, network, as well as applications. Now I think it makes sense to club performance as well as Lighthouse. So the overall intention is to study your website in all the perspectives, whether it is from accessibility, performance wise, or how it will be to the user. So first let's start with Lighthouse, and all you need to do is what categories you want to check. I want to check its performance. Progressive web app, it is not there, but let it we want to run those checks also. SEO, ISO, I want accessibility, I want, and device I want to check is let's say mobile. And all you need to do is just generate report. So it will kind of do an audit of this report, right? So you can see on the left hand side, uh, there is a mobile. It is trying to load on that. mobile console, mobile, the demo one, it is trying to load on that. Now, hopefully, we'll get our report in terms of these categories. You can see our website is following 100% best practices, although one page. Performance wise, there is 62%. And okay, very good point. I forgot to mention. Since we have not used incognito mode, the Chrome extension which we have impacted it, right? So let's do this one more time. Yes, I forgot that. So maybe we go to this, and then I open again the same way the Lighthouse, and I say generate report, everything same options. Ah, because now you can see, because it is a very simple single page, I was like, why in performance it is bad? Because there were extensions there. But now it is 100, which is good. Best practice is 100, one page. SEO wise, we are down, accessibility also not good. Now, if you scroll down, you'll see metrics wise, time to interactive and everything is green, green, green. There is a trace and there is a accessibility issues, right? Background and foreground render do not have a sufficient contrast ratio, then it tells you the different options of how do we fix it, right? Or maybe on SEO also it tells you there is no meta tag. Yes, we did not provide it, and all these things. So that is one aspect. It tells you, talks about how your website is, what is, how does it rate on different parameters. Now let's say I want to measure the performance if I do some actions, right? So if I just say record and I just say start, I just want to click on these things 3 4 times, right? And then I say stop. So it will also record during that time how our website is behaving. Good thing is you can set the network also, whether it is 3G 4G, we have not set any. You can set what kind of a CPU also. And if you look at it, there are three parts to it. One is FPS, frames per second, and it is all good, which is very good because there is no less of a frames, there is no frame drop. CPU utilization is also good, not much, and network is also good. So if you look at here, the frames, there's almost it's 1 frame per second idle frame. It's all green, right? It's good, so nothing bad. And if you just scroll up, you will see where your time is being most of the time is utilized in scripting, rendering, printing. Primarily it is scripting because we are clicking this button, there are logics being run, right? And you can have this mm, there's not much here, bottom up, not much here, even log also is empty. Okay, good, because our website is a very basic one, so it doesn't have that. Let's do one more thing. Let's open google.com. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll delete this and we'll delete these. And then we say generate a report on google.com and we'll see, do we have any issues or anything issue related to google.com. You can access any site across these parameters, and let's see how it behaves with Google. And it also provides you some tips also, how you can increase your load time and how can improve your performance. So let's see what score does Google gets actually. Wow. Performance wise, amazing. So I will say time to interact, auto blocking time. What you can do is, because it might have, I have already loaded a site here, so you can do multiple, you can generate this report multiple time and to come up at a certain decision. And I think remove unused sub, so it tells you where there is some unused JavaScript. Accessibility wise, it is very good. Whatever is small changes, it tells you. Then best practices, there is some font size or register, those you can do. PW, it's not a PWA. Search engine also it. So there is always a room for improvement. That's very important. So Lighthouse and performance is what we normally use for. So in our next one, we will like to look at security and memory, and then that will be like our end of the course. So in this last lesson, we'll talk about briefly about memory and security. And in case you don't see these tabs, you can click here and go to more tools and you can choose from here. So typically security is like what kind of certificates our site has. Since it is not secured, it doesn't use HTTPS, it is HTTP. That's why you see this, right? For example, if I open google.com, right, and then I see this security tab. Let's just let it open. Yeah. So now you will see here is let it load, it's a bit slower, that it is a secure field, green, and you can also see the certificate also, what certificate is it using, right? And you can download that. So, and all the details are there. So that's the importance of this site, right? That's the importance of this security tab. You can view the certificates, settings, resources, everything is secured or not, right? And here it clearly shows it is non-secure, right? So now, so we understand what happens in security tab. Let's maybe go to memory. So there, what happens is because this whole website contains so many JavaScript objects, right? So those objects and strings, how much memory they are occupying, how much this DOM actually is occupying your memory, what are detached object. So those things we can look here. So what you can do is you click here, you go to this memory tab, you click here on take snapshot, and then you just press refresh. This number is increasing, right? So this increase is actually basically building the snapshots. And okay, so here you now see all the relevant objects, window, document, everything. Shadow size is the current memory size which has been occupied by the objects here is in strings, and retained is in case they're released, how much of it can be recovered. And distance is typically more of a like you store different memory areas. One is linked to two, two is linked to two. So how far those nodes are distant. And if I search on this in DOM, so here I don't see any detached node. Detached nodes are like, for example, if you have a tree, and then that tree has its leaf nodes, and if you delete the leaf nodes have reference to the tree, but you delete the tree, so but your leaf nodes reference still to the tree. So that's it. They are like they exist, but they're not part of the DOM, but they are occupying the memory. They are detached node. So in this case, we can see we don't have those detached node at least, so which is good, right? And here, once you click on it, you can get the details, right? For example, for Google, if we run such snapshot, okay, and I just refresh it, I can click here around on the things. And same way, this the other options also kind of this one is also like it draws a timeline also. So let it run. And plus you can filter from here. You can see the objects allocated. This summary is like you can see statistics, for example, how much of it is code, strings, arrays. So typically system objects, how much of each memory is being used. Let it run. So now let's see DOM detached DOM token list. You see this? So we have there are around we see that there are some iframe elements for which we can have a detached token which exists, right? And you can click and find the details. So I believe we have covered most of these very important tabs, and rest all, for example, you can keep using them, right? Whenever you can refer them whenever you need, for example, network relations, rendering, right? So that's how normally uh, our journey of Chrome developer tools or console comes to an end. Before that, one more thing is if you want to run some commands, for example, you want to show console, so you can directly show console and it moves towards there. So this is like a command prompt which you can use. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you everyone for making to the end of this course, and I hope you learned something new, something more out of this course. Feel free to provide your feedback, ratings, and happy to share it with your friends. What is next? So the what is next is that this is like a Chrome. We are into Chrome, so we might actually look into how do we develop an extension, or is it possible to develop an extra tab, our own one. For example, you see these, right? You might have a course on it, so maybe you can also explore. And once again, thanks for watching. Keep sharing, keep learning. Bye bye, take care, stay safe.